filing the possibility to show this film here, and that you really found time to join us here. Maybe I could start a little bit more general to talk about your work, and so we have time to get down from this film. I think it's obvious that you are deeply connected to your country, and after the films I saw, which are I think the last 4 films of you, I think what is really interesting is your look on the characters you talk about, which is in my eyes really patient and in a way full of love for the characters, with the result that you don't only tell something about these people you talk about, but about human beings in general. And that's what I was thinking about is I think I heard you in an interview saying that you love Turkey, and I would never be able to say to love Germany. So I wondered about what is the difference. I mean, could you tell us something about the relationship to your country, and what does that mean for your work?
I don't know, it's a difficult question actually. Of course, as a filmmaker, the details of the culture is our words, our language, so we need them for filmmaking. And I think I cannot it's very difficult for me to make a film outside, because I don't really know deeply the details of the culture. I mean, when I look at somebody, I really cannot understand the whole story. But in Turkey, even the minor detail tells me everything. Which part of Turkey he's from the language, from the hairstyle, of the clothes, everything. I can understand everything. So I use them in the filmmaking, so that's why I need Turkey. And of course, that doesn't mean that I don't find Turkey a very special place. Finally, I believe that all the humanity is quite similar. You know, everybody is quite the same. Of course, there are some characteristics of Turkish people. Maybe they are more friendly. It's easier to. It's the type of the culture, but the human nature, I think it's the same everywhere in the world. I am fond of Turkey, but that doesn't mean that I'm in love with Turkey. Because I need, in other way, it's maybe a pragmatic answer, maybe, I don't know. But it's a complicated thing, of course. Also, you love your past also. I'm fond of my past, because without your past, you don't feel that you exist, you know. So it's complicated, many things.
No, but thank you, I understand a little bit better.
Yeah.
Are there any questions, or anybody want to mention something? Also about the film, for sure.
No question?
Why are all women either angels or victims in your film?
All the women?
The woman in your film?
Yeah.
There's 2 women appearing.
Yeah.
So one seems to be an angel.
Yeah.
And one seems to be a victim.
It's just coincidence, I think. Yeah, not a special purpose. Yeah. I'm not against women.
I didn't say you are against women, but it's quite amazing for me. I mean, I don't know Anatolia at all. So is this the way people live there today?
You know, the story takes place, I mean, this type of things, normally there is no woman, you know, in a church. You know, most of the officers are generally men, you know. Just to be realistic, we had to select it like that. And I must say, of course, this story started from a real story. One of the scriptwriters, a doctor, a close friend of mine, told me this story, I mean the base of the story, not everything, in one dinner, that they searched a body till the morning. That was the starting point for the story. In Turkey, the doctors has to make an obligatory social service in the remote part of Turkey, in Anatolia, for about 2 years. So they, during these 2 years after the school, there's a huge responsibility on them. So they have to make a lot of autopsies and things like that suddenly after school. So they live really interesting things during that period. And he used to tell me some of them. But this one day, we thought we can make a film out of it. Of course, we changed everything. We added everything. We wrote everything again. We changed the characters. We changed everything. And also we have some quotations from Anton Chekhov stories as well. Filmmaking and script writing is not maybe for everybody, but for me it's kind of collage, you know. There are lots of things in your head, so the problem is bringing them together really in a coherent and integrity, I mean, in a harmonic way. Yeah.
First of all, congratulations. I think it's really a masterpiece. What I really found interesting is actually that dramas, all dramas in these people's life have taken before actually we start to get up in the film. So it was always, could you maybe sort of give us an idea how you sort of, when writing it, how did you sort of, because the conflicts have already been there. You know what I mean?
Yes, but I don't know what to say.
It's actually, the drama has taken already place.
Mm.
The crime has happened. The story of the prosecutor and his wife has all already taken place, and we see another story actually, and in so many layers.
Yes, I'm the kind of director who tries to tell his stories through the details. Details are so much importance for me because, sometimes somebody from the family dies, for instance, you don't feel anything. But one day you see his jacket in the corner of one room, and you suddenly feel the tragedy, and you feel very sad. I think this kind of details tells a lot to me in the life. So I try to tell the story by means of these details. Writing a script is really a mystery for me. I don't know how I do. At the beginning, it seems to me always hopeless. Several months, and suddenly I find a script in front of me, and I don't really remember what happens between. We work hard, of course, but I don't see anything. Everything seems hopeless and or complicated. But you try to make them coherent and mean something for you. Of course, I can answer about every detail in my film. I mean, there is nothing arbitrary there, but of course, until you finish the film, you work on that, really. I mean, in the script, it doesn't never finish. In the shooting, you change everything. You still search, and in the editing, it still goes on. The writing part, I think about 6 months. So I'm not sure about it. Because you never know when did it start. The starting point is unknown to me because maybe several months you think about it only, but you don't write anything. So it's hard to say. Anything else? Yes?
I wanted to ask how you work with the sound, with synchronization a lot, or how long you work on sound montage?
Sound is difficult to answer, and I say everything. But in the shooting, I don't think a lot about the sound actually, because it's something you can change, you can add, or you can really decide in the post production. In the shooting, I only want from the sound man to shoot the dialogues good, but the rest of them, you really have to start thinking about it during the offline editing, because I begin to make the sound design during the editing of the image slowly, because it changes the feeling of the length of the shots. You have to add arbitrarily, I mean, maybe not perfectly, but you have to put them in their place to understand, to feel the scene. And so I make a sound design myself during editing, actually. But after that, another 2 months for sound editing again, just concentrating on that. This time I worked with a French sound editor, but I also worked with him here. Yeah, because in sound I don't really try to be very realistic, because in image maybe I try to be more realistic, but in sound I feel more free, because in life I believe we select what to hear. There are lots of sound, but we just hear one thing in general. So you can apply that also in the films. I generally isolate some sounds in general.
Are there more questions?
Do you enjoy the process of shooting? Is shooting for you the core of the work? I see that most of the shooting was done by night. Was this a complicated shoot for you, or was it, compared to your other films, more easy?
Night shooting, of course, in the middle of the nowhere was difficult, but that's not important. The technical difficulties doesn't mean anything really. The more difficult things is always to decide. You have to decide thousands of decisions you have to make during filmmaking, and it really tires you. I mean, the tiring things are being cold, and the other things are really not so important. But your mind is really getting tired because of the decisions. But of course, in terms of technical, if I take your question technically, it's difficult, yes. Because it's dark, so you have to use the spotlights of the cars as the light source. So there's, I try to use the spotlights in a certain choreography, because and we also, of course, technically we had to do some modifications. We had to change the spotlights sometimes to make them stronger. Then you put a generator in the car, and it has a sound, noise, so it creates another difficulty of sound shooting and many things. But the main thing was, of course, we needed a moonlight, and so moonlight for such a huge place was really difficult and expensive. So it should be high enough And we had to devise something with special cranes. We had to put 25K of lights above, and it was not enough because the lighting is not uniform, so you have to feed extra lights to the distance. Because half of the film is in the dark, so without the moonlight it would be only the heads in the darkness. It would be a bit risky, so we wanted to use the feel of the countryside also, the monotonity of the countryside.
What's about the storm in the night?
Storm, it's another, of course. It's of course, you know that you cannot wait for the storm in the filmmaking. You have to create it. So it was a storm machine.
How do you, now we talked about the script and the sound and the night, how do you work with the image, with your cameraman? I mean, I've seen a few of your films and they're all extremely visual, and the colors are, it seems like they look natural, but they're extremely chosen of a piece of window and lots of blues. And sometimes I also wonder if you push the colors in the post-production, or if it's very natural, because sometimes it's quite stunning. And yeah, I just want to know how you work. Do you work a lot with your cameraman, or do you work if you already have the images in your head, and you tell them what to do?
Actually, the form, or let me say, the image is the easiest thing for me, because I don't spend any energy on that. I leave it all to my instincts, and I don't think about it. So it's, I really don't know what I'm doing. I just go there and put the camera somewhere, all by instincts. So I have a habit of this, but I'm more concerned with the content, actually, in the shooting. And I trust my maybe abilities about how to tell the story. I really don't make plans. I never draw pictures. How do you call it? The storyboard. Yeah, I never draw storyboards, for instance, because I prefer not knowing anything when I go to the set, just playing, and when I contact with the location, then I want to slowly decide where to put the camera and the extra things like that, with the actors, with because my concentration really increased at that moment with the actors, with their clothes, everything, etc., and with the same atmosphere, everything. Then I decide, but in this film, I tried in terms of the colors. I tried to be as naturalistic as possible. I mean, I didn't really modify the colors at all. I tried to do it because we shot it in the logarithmic camera, so it changed the colors a lot. So we had to come back to the natural coloration. It was a bit difficult, actually, the color grading, just to get the natural look. Maybe we couldn't really succeed it, I'm not sure.
Are there more questions?
Okay.
It's not exactly a question, but I'd really like to hear you discuss a little bit. The story of the film is in fact a skein or a weave of stories. Many of them specific and laid out for us, and many of them just implied, such as the moment when the brother cries, "I killed him," he says, "Shut up." And I'd really like to hear you discuss your feelings or your plannings between the specific and the implied in your creation of the story and your exposition of the story. Does that make sense?
Really quite understand the question.
It wasn't really a question so much as I would like if you could to discuss your feelings between what's implicit and presented and what you imply as not so much backstory perhaps, but stories that we're only hearing hints of in your writing of the film or your preparing of the story. Because it's a whole bunch of stories around, within the big story. Every character is a story. And some of them we hint, and some of them we very much understand. I just wanted to hear if you had anything, and if you could discuss that a little bit. It's not a question per se.
Yeah. Actually, of course, there is always a difference between your intentions and the result. But you really begin to forget it by the end of the film, when you finish the film. Sometimes editing is like a music, you know. You search also for harmony only. I mean, because you are all the time you are going from one harmony to another harmony, you know, like in the music. So this should many things together. You try to stick your intentions at the same time, but at the same time you search something else, because sometimes it doesn't work. You see that what you planned doesn't work at all, so you have to find solutions all the time. So sometimes you deceive yourselves, I believe, to convince yourself that the new solutions is even better. Sometimes you accept it as a reality, you know. Filmmaking, I think, is one of the most difficult things that you really can succeed your intentions. If you are writing a novel, you change the words, but you cannot go back to filming, you know. It's what you shoot is what you have in the editing. So sometimes you feel that I wish I had to shoot something like this, but it's not there. So you have to find another solution. So it's a very complicated process, but I think at the end of the day, you have to be realistic, because you have the materials. So because of this fact, I try to shoot lots of alternatives. And I think the digital filmmaking is one of the best sides of the digital filmmaking, is this. You can, without spending lots of money, without really increasing the budget, you can shoot alternatives. So sometimes I find myself shooting just the opposite of my intention, because editing, it's a miracle, you know. Sometimes just the opposite of your intentions works much better, and it's much deeper. You realize it. So this experience of my past makes me shoot a lot in the shooting, because you know, at the end, we really doesn't know. It's the most biggest mystery is the human nature. So it's you never know what you planned in the table when you write the script. Really surprises you a lot sometimes when you do it. How could you? I think that this is silly, you say, most of the time, sometimes. So editing is extremely important for me, because that's the only time, only place you really have time to think about and to find a real balance on the film. in the shooting because there's a time restriction as well. You have to decide quickly many things. So instead of deciding, shooting alternatives is better, I think. Yeah.
When shooting or when you shoot alternatives, your shooting period are getting longer?
Can you repeat?
When you're shooting alternatives on the set, is your the period when you're shooting, when you're outdoors, is that getting longer then?
Is that?
Getting longer. So maybe does it take more time?
Yeah. Yes, of course. But I think if your crew is not so crowded, it's easier, of course. This time it was quite crowded, about 70 people behind the camera. So it was you begin to think that every day is really a great amount of money. So I had to be quicker, but still I like to spend time on shooting. At the end, but my film, I shoot films not so long actually. This film about 2.5 months of shooting. But because of that, I prepared better this time because of that risk. But in my previous films, the crew was small. In that case, you can spend more time on the shooting.
So the alternatives you are planning already in the beginning. You're not improvising on.
Yes, if I find ideas, of course I plan. But always you find new ideas in the shooting. You cannot stop it because with the reality of the shooting, you begin to see some new realities always. Because what you wrote doesn't fit to your actor. What will you do? You have to change something.
Thank you.
One last question, maybe?
Okay. No.
So how do you know when it's done? So how do you know if you sit on the table and I have to put it together? So when you think that's
I couldn't hear.
Okay, you get
How do you know when it's done? When the film is finished? How do you know when you are in the editing room? How do you know when you finished your film?
Of course, with a lot of uncertainties, and of course you show the film to your friends, or sometimes there are places you really never sure. So there are people who you trusted. You show them. You try to make sure, of course. What else can you do? Like the painter, when does the painting finished? It's hard to be sure. But if you have time, of course, it's easier with time because it settles more. But sometimes there are deadlines, which I don't like. But you have to be quick sometimes. It's the reality of because the film business is really dependent on the money also. That's of course I want to be as much as free of that, but that's a reality at the end of the day. Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Mr.
very
Ceylan.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you, Angela.